All right, thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Natural Resource Economics, which is the last session in our 2021 Art of Resilience speaker series. This series is a joint effort between the College of St. Scholastica and the University of Minnesota Duluth Sustainability Offices, bringing together campus and community to explore sustainability and equity in a rapidly changing world. I'm Jonna Corpy, and I serve as the Sustainability Coordinator for the University of Minnesota Duluth. And I am missing my co-host today. I'm not sure where Ryan is, so unfortunately it might just be me, but hopefully he's able to join us in a minute. But before we get started, I would like to cover a few housekeeping topics. Today's webinar is being recorded, and we will be able to share a link with you after the event is complete for your reference or to share with others that might find it useful. We also invite your comments and questions, so please put them in the chat as you think of them, and I will ask them during the Q&A session. And Dr. Mamun has mentioned that he's happy to answer questions about any terms or definitions that come up in the moment while he's presenting. So feel free to ask those as well, and then we'll save bigger, more in-depth questions for the Q&A session that will come in at the end of the presentation. So for format, our guests will be presenting for about 30 minutes, and then we will have another 20 or so minutes for a solid question and answer. And again, our topic today is natural resource economics, which focuses on how to operate an economy within the ecological constraints of the Earth's natural resources. The speaker for our session today is Dr. Saleh Mamun. Saleh is a postdoctoral associate at UMD's Natural Resources Research Institute, and is also doing research in applied economics at the Twin Cities campus. Dr. Mamun specializes in ecosystem services and will be talking with us about two projects he's currently working on. So with that, Saleh, I will turn it over to you, and I will also turn our live transcript on. Sorry, closed captions will be available in just a second. All right.
Okay, welcome everyone to the presentation today. So I'll be going to share the screen. I have a presentation ready for you guys. So I hope you are seeing the full screen view of the presentation. So I am Saleh Mamun. I am economist by training. I am extensively working with biologists, ecologists, limnologists, and a broad range of scientists to find out what is the value of different ecosystem services and natural resources such that these value can be integrated into the integrated assessment system. And it is my privilege to share my experience with all of you today. Welcome to the presentation. So today I'll be mainly sharing my experience working as a postdoctoral associate in this field. And today's presentation, I will be mainly focusing on two broad group of projects that I'm involved in. So one of them is quantifying natural capital efficiency. So what that basically entails is doing a global scale analysis of some of the natural capital or natural resources and find out how countries are doing in terms of efficiently using their natural capital. And another suite of project that I'm involved in is valuation of ecosystem services or natural resources. So some of the projects within that realm I work on are forest ecosystem services, valuing water quality, valuing urban ecosystem services. So I'll go into details just in a minute for those type of projects I'm involved in. So when I was a college student, many of you are college students, I believe. So I used to play a game, and not a game, a broad range of game. One of them is a strategic game called Age of Empires 2. So in that game, what a player's role is to populate a land by people and then give them task of farming, carpentry, stone collection, and so on. And finally, all focusing on getting more resources within a short period of time and then do warfare and trade to conquer the world. And I believe I have grown up. I'm not a college student anymore, and I don't care about that much about warfare and that much of market trade the game are talking about. But now one of the projects that I work on, it's kind of similar to simulating this type of game methodology, saying that you are given a piece of land, what is the best use you can do such that you will not only be economically beneficial, but also conserving ecosystem services and valuing natural resources. So what is the study area again? So if you look into, we are working on a global scale. So what we do is we divide the entire world into 300 by 300 meter small square grid. So it is 10-second resolution of the entire world. So this gives us around 8.4 billion square. So we need to take decision on 4.8 billion times to figure out what we can do in the entire world such that it not only gives us beneficial for economy, but also beneficial for ecosystem services. So what are the rules of this game? So first of all, we have a target and we call it our objective function. So we need to maximize monetary return, and monetary return comprises of agricultural crop production, it comprises of managed forestry, it comprises of grazing. And at the same time, we need to maximize net greenhouse gas sequestration and maximize biodiversity while minimize water quality impact. So currently we are looking one specific part of water quality impact, and it is through colorectal cancer cases. So when this is our objective, what can be the rule or what action you can take? So the broad action is you can alternate your land use. So you can decide what you want to do in each of these 300 by 300 meter square grid. So either you can keep it so the way it is, then it is a natural area, it is forest, you just keep it, you don't touch it, you don't do anything in there. You can make a cropland saying that, okay, we will grow crop, and it can be different type of cropland, say rain-fed cropland, irrigated cropland with intensification, cropland with best management practices, BMPs, and so on. You can do managed forestry in a piece of land. You can do grazing, or you can have urban development areas, and you can have protected areas. So you can have all these things within a land and decide which one give you highest or maximum monetary return, net greenhouse gas sequestration, and biodiversity while minimize water quality impact. So you take that decision over and over for a country and find out what are the optimal solutions. So remember here, one thing needs to be very clear that we don't have just one optimal solution, but we have multiple optimal solutions. We can reach to the optimal solution in very different way. So you will have a lot of optimal solution, and at the same time, you know where you are right now, and then you can calculate, okay, how am I doing in terms of my resource use? So what is the efficiency of a country in using their resources? So I want to refer you to the graph that is in the left side. let's say we are in a two-dimensional space. So although we have four things in here, but let's say we want to maximum economic score at the same time maximum biodiversity. So objective A can be economic score, objective B is biodiversity. And we can plot the blue curve saying that if we go up to the blue curve, that means that is the efficient frontier and the best combination we can do. And if we do nothing, or if we do take all the poor choices, we can go up to the minimized frontier, not the zero, because if we do everything bad, take every worst decision possible, but still we cannot go to zero towards the biodiversity, because there will be some biodiversity. If only humans live, that means there is biodiversity there. So the worst thing we can do is plotted in the red graph. And currently we are here, and the efficiency of a country depending on how far this brown dot is from the blue line, and it also depends on how far this is from the red line. Based on these two distance, we can give them a number saying that this is the NCI score for a country given what is their current situation and where they can go. So we do that for an entire globe for all the countries. And if I represent that into a 3D graph, I believe you can see that screen. So this is the way our 3D representation. In the x-axis or the horizontal axis, we have net production value. Over here, we have biodiversity. Over here, we have carbon. So for country X, at this point, I cannot disclose any results. So we have just country X for a representation. So baseline is here, and their minimized, nearest minimization frontier path is here, and they can go to there. So based on these distances, we can come up with what is their score and how well a country is doing compared to its peers and so on. So this type of work over here, we're talking about biodiversity in terms of, say, number of species. And for carbon and net production value, we are talking about in dollar terms. But how do a policymaker decide where they want to go on this efficient frontier? They all want to go to the efficient frontier, but where they want to go? So they need to make a trade-off in monetary return and the biodiversity. So how do they themselves decide what is the trade-off in there? So in that way, we need to know how much do we value biodiversity compared to our economic growth. So what are the weight we put on? So one way of putting that way is finding what is the value of biodiversity. So the next sort of project I'll be talking about finding the value of different ecosystem services and different natural resources by using some of the technique. So in that way, the project I'm involved in, some of the project answer the question, what is the value of pollinator abundance? What is the value of wildlife habitat or water quality? So those type of questions, I'm involved in project that answer those type of questions. And to be clear, so we know there is a small difference between ecosystem services and natural resources. So from now on, we'd like to call all these goods non-market goods, because these are not publicly market tradable goods. And that's why we need to go all this exercise to find out what is the value. If it is marketable goods, then we know from the market what is the price and the value for these goods. So first of all, what is the value of this thing? So you will say, okay, it's invaluable. How can you put a price tag for water quality or price tag for pollinator? If there is no pollinator, and a lot of things will be vanished. And if these are vanished, for example, a lot of product that you see in our grocery, especially the produce, will vanish. And that's why it is invaluable. But still, we calculate value. So why do we calculate value? We put a price tag on those type of invaluable non-market goods just to compare with another invaluable non-market good and make a policymaker's life easy by taking policy decisions. Take a case of forest management. So when we decide what is the way we can manage our forest. So if we say we want to do certain practices in managing our forest, say clear cut or so this can impact not only our timber production, but at the same time, it can impact on carbon sequestration, it can impact on wildlife habitat, it can have water quality impact. But if we do another type of forest management, that also have a different level of impact on all these ecosystem services. And in this case, the timber production, the water quality, wildlife habitat, and carbon sequestration, all of these are measured in different units. Say, how do you measure water quality? You might say, okay, I'm taking what is the clarity of water, or I'm taking what is the nutrient loading of water. Say, what is the microgram per liter of phosphorus in the water. So that is what we are looking at. But for carbon dioxide or carbon sequestration, we are looking at tons of carbon. So how do you compare one measurement unit with another? And there is no established thing. So we need to come up with a common denominator such that we can choose what is the best forest management practices that we can adapt such that it will maximize our need in carbon sequestration. At the same time, it will meet our need for water quality. So how do we get value of non-market goods? So we are talking about, we want to put a price sticker for water quality. And when we say price sticker, we really mean that our anthropocentric view, saying that, okay, how much people care, not trying to say this is the value of an invaluable non-market goods. So we have two different approaches, broadly if I speaking. So one of them is stated preference approach. So that says, and another one is revealed preference approach. So the stated preference approach is basically asking people what their stated behavior is. So doing a survey, asking like, how much do you want to pay for this non-market good, or asking them to make trade-off between alternative plans and so on. In revealed preference method, what we do, we observe people's behavior. For example, say, we want to know what is the value of water quality. So in that thing, we ask, we observe people, how much they are willing to pay more if they are purchasing a home near to the lake that has better water quality compared to the other. And we control for all these socio-demographic variable and other characteristics of housing, such as number of bedroom and bathroom and so on. And then we can tease out the effect of only the water quality and find, okay, if the water quality is good and water is clear and it has more recreational opportunity, and we can find out what is the portion of that attributed in the housing value. So that way we can find, okay, does people care about water quality or not by observing their home buying choices. So if I can give a more elaborate example that I'm involved in for the stated choice. So one of the projects I work in, we call it forest optimization. So over there, we are trying to find out what is the optimal way a forest manager can manage their forest such that it give them maximize timber production, at the same time maximize carbon sequestration and water quality and species habitat. So we are currently in the phase of collecting survey data. So we have prepared a survey, we have not launched it yet. So this is the way the survey look like. So we are asking people to choose between plans, say plan 1, plan 2, and plan 3 or current management. And each of these plan has varying degree of all these ecosystem services. And if enough people take the survey, and based on that, we can use this data to find out what is the value of carbon sequestration, what is the value of water quality. And if we have another team, those are testing out different forest management and finding out what is level of water quality in biophysical term. And we can integrate this valuation approach with their integrated assessment and finally facilitate the forester and the decision maker. If you choose this way, this way to manage your forest, this is what you will get in terms of timber production and carbon sequestration. And based on the value, you can decide which way to go. So this is to make a policymaker's life easy in that sense. So I'll give a little pause. I'm not seeing the chat. I'm not sure if anybody is asking any question. I'll give a pause if you have any questions or anything at this point or any clarification. Okay, I'll move forward. So another project that I'm involved in, we call it water quality and impairment valuation. So over here, we are looking into how much do we value if the water quality is impaired. For example, look at this. So you went to a beach and you say beach is closed due to some types of impairment in the lake water. So how do you feel? Like what will happen, what will be your reaction in terms of saying, okay, the beach is impaired. If I want to buy a house by the beach, so do we feel good? And the result we find in that project for impairment only, that there is 18% decrease in lakeshore property value because there is some type of impairment on the beach. It can be like, it can be due to phosphorus loading, nitrogen loading, or it can be because of heavy algal bloom. It can also be a result of some mercury in the fish tissues. So all this impairment that is listed, for those, we find that there is 18% decrease in lakeshore property. So we also looked into what happens if there is an increase in chlorophyll A in the lake water. So we find for chlorophyll A alone, there is 0.5% decrease in property value if chlorophyll increased by 10 microgram per liter. So we also looked into what happens due to the water clarity. So we find that there is 9% increase in property value if water clarity increased by a meter. So that way, we find that people care about water clarity, people care about chlorophyll A, people care about whether a lake or a stream is impaired or not while purchasing their homes. So that way we can integrate this valuation into our integrated assessment of water quality and find out what is the best solution, or how do we manage our water resources such that it takes care of this type of cost and this type of valuation approach. And I'll be talking about another project that I involved on, and it involves a similar approach. And this will be the last one I'll be talking about. So this one is basically based on urban ecosystem services, and we looked into Ramsey and Hennepin County of Minnesota. So over there, what we are looking at that in urban arena, there is different ecosystem services that people really value. So when they are making their home purchasing decision, and they are basically looking at what is the noise level, what is the green space, what is the tree canopy, and is there any pollinator. They don't really care about directly pollinator. Instead, they'll look into if the neighborhood looks nice and a lot of flower grows in here or not. And they also look into if this part of neighborhood is excessively temperate or not. So all this association we have been looking into and tying them with the home value. And our plan is to find out what is the value. So a very preliminary result we have, and we find that if there is an increase of noise level by 1%, there is 0.5% decrease in property value. And for green space, if the neighborhood has 1% increase in green space, there is 8% increase in property value. For tree canopy within the property parcel, if there is 1% increase, we get 6% increase in property value. For pollinator abundance, we get, for 1% increase, we get like, there is a typo here, 4% increase we get. And for 0.1 degree increase in temperature, we get 10% decrease in property value. So from all these results, what is our plan? And what we can do with this valuation is we already have integrated assessment. So our group do that, and we can put that valuation into this integrated assessment and find and provide decision support. For example, for these urban ecosystem services such as pollinator and so on. So our group worked with the Invest team, that is a natural capital group at Stanford. So we have a suite of software called Invest. So in Invest, we are planning to incorporate some of these valuations such that when you are doing water quality modeling in Invest or pollinator abundance modeling in Invest, you also can check in whether you want to get the value or not, and then this type of valuation will be inbuilt in that system, and you will directly get a integrated assessment along with the valuation to take a decision. So all these valuation exercise and integrated assessment is done for the policymaker to take informed decisions such that it does not only benefit the economy or the private sector, but it benefit at the same time the ecosystem, the natural resources, and so on. So with that, I rest my case, and if there is any question, discussion, I am more than happy to answer at my capacity.
Excellent. Yeah, there are questions coming in. So I think to start, let's see, the first one that came in goes back to the survey tools. So specifically, how did you validate the survey tools to make sure that they were measuring what you wanted them to measure?
Yeah, so for the survey, so before going to the survey, like before conducting the survey, we test out the survey questionnaire itself, and it has a rigorous qualitative process to go through. For example, first we develop a survey, and then we do focus group, we do pilot testing, and in the focus group, we just conducted the focus group 2 weeks back for this survey. And we find that some of the things people are not understanding. For example, when we are talking about utility bill with the forest management, people has very different assumption back in their mind. So by doing all this qualitative process, we can validate our survey is giving us the result that we are asking.
Excellent. Hopefully that answered that audience member's question. The next question that comes up is from Rachel. And Rachel, I apologize. I'm going to ask it, but I'm not sure that I understand it. So hopefully Saleh does. What would you say is a policy or a law that is A, inhibitive to forest management, and then on the converse side, B, productive to forest management?
So she also has another question. I'm not sure I understand the question, but she has another question. Let's read it out. To what extent are native peoples involved in co-managing the forest in Minnesota? Yeah, so the way I'm taking this question is, so the way, like, I'll answer the Native American question first. So we know that a lot of forest and other things is within the Native American land. So that way we are trying to incorporate that is we are surveying a group of population, and because we cannot survey all the population, so we have a sample, and the sample is coming from a third party. So right now we are validating if this population consists of Native American population or not. And we are doing an online survey. So the way we are handling participation of native peoples is giving them a way out, saying that if you don't want to go online and participate in the survey, instead you can participate a paper copy, ask for a paper copy, and we will supply that. That is the methodology we are implying to get involvement of the net, to hear the voice of Native American people. And in terms of like either inhibitive or productive forest management, so that way we are talking about, we are looking into very different forest management practices happening in the real world. And we are taking them and randomizing their benefit in terms of ecosystem services and timber production, and asking them the question, which one you prefer most. So based on their preference, we can find out what is the value a person is associating that. And then we will not be prescribing a forest management to the policymaker or forester. Instead, we will give them the tool saying that, okay, this is the online tool you can access, and you plan your forest management, and then you can see how it is impacting timber production, how it is impacting your other ecosystem services. And based on that, along with the valuation, you can decide on your own what you want to do.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, we've got a question from Roomby that's been upvoted a couple of times, so there's some interest in this question. So does valuation take into consideration the knowledge of respondents on ecosystem services? Real understanding is polarized with the capitalist world of marketing and advertising.
Yeah, so this is very like an excellent question. So we want to hear the voice of people, and that way we want to reach out to the people who are uh, general population, not to the expert, not to any specific group. So the way we selected our sample size is totally random, and we are only working on 11 counties of Minnesota. And the way we are thinking, because it always depends on the education or how well a person is known of forest management per se, or on the topic. And we are thinking the way, when we are asking the question, before asking this question, we are educating the people and giving them sufficient information in the short form, such that a 12th grader can understand what we are talking about. For example, we are talking about what do we mean by water quality. We are talking about what do we mean by habitat quality, and so on. So we educate them within the survey. Say education is around 12 screen, then asking 3 screen of question. So we definitely give them a knowledge of the topic if they are not aware of, and then answer the question. And also, if somebody is already well known of the topic, say our survey reached to a forester and he already know that what's going on in this part of Minnesota, and they might have different answer. But when you have over a lot of people's participation in the survey, I think those type of biasness will to be taken care of by the volume of the survey, and then we can come up with what general people really want.
Great, perfect. Another great question from Melissa. So what are some ways that the city, and I think she's specifically referencing Duluth because I know Melissa's here in Duluth, but maybe this could apply to any city. So what ways can the city increase a community's perceived demand of natural resource preservation and expansion?
So it goes to like the way I perceive that, like, is through education. So if what people want is recollection of their past behavior, that's what I feel like. So in that way, what I find is, for example, if you look into PFAS and other program that educate people about the water quality and where they live, what is the nearby water. And EPA also have one great website. It says, how's my water body? So if you look into those type of website and look, here is what I live and what is the water quality around me, and you can those type of, like, always it should be come from the education, saying that, okay, I want to live in a better place. So by better place, if you mean that which gives a lot of ecosystem services, then it's need to be coming through the I would say demand side, instead of the city or the government, whoever providing that. And many of the cases, not just government is providing the ecosystem services. Instead, these are provided by privately. And so you can be a consumer when at the same time you are also provider of ecosystem services. If you, for example, say, if you want to live close to a park and so on. So I believe by educating or doing different programs, so that the city is doing, saying that we live in a great neighborhood, and this is how the way we can increase the ecosystem services along with our city limit. They can do that.
Great. It's an interesting question about the current buying craze. That gets back to your example of when a person is buying a house and how much they value a certain home, but with prices potentially inflated, is that making it difficult or more easy to identify which eco services people value? Or I guess maybe the better question is, what is the time frame that you maybe look at those things? Are you controlling for something like COVID or some sort of a boom in the real estate market cycle when you're using that as a gauge?
Yeah, so this is excellent question. By the way, I view it, it is talking about whether I control for some of the variable that I need to control for. So many of the research we are doing is in the difference approach. So by that, I mean, say, I am comparing one lake, property around one lake with another lake and at the same time period. So if that is at the same time period, the purchasing behavior, it will not be impacted by, will be impacted by COVID at the same way. So that way, if I take the difference, then the COVID craze will not that much of impact in people's decision, like the answer I am getting. But the thing is, for some of the analysis, I took different approach over where I control for the recession and so on, but I have not using very recent data, say, so I have 2020 purchasing behavior, but still I'm not using, or I don't have that much of modeling and resource to look into how the COVID impacted the housing market. So we're not really controlling for that, but some of the result I'm getting already taken care of by different approach. But I will say, for some of the analysis, we have not think about the COVID craze of buying houses yet, but that is a good suggestion. I will keep that in mind. Thank you.
Excellent. Another question that's been upvoted, from your experience, how responsive is policy in your ecosystem service valuation? And is it gaining traction in city and state planning?
So the thing is, I would say, like, what I am seeing so far, people is motivated on what they gain in the short term. And I have seen ecosystem services are being neglected. I have also seen there is increasing demand for ecosystem services. So that way, like, if I have to summarize this in very few sentences, I'll say there is increasing demand. And I would say previously we did not have that much of effort going into those type of analysis, saying that, okay, we did not have integrated assessment. So whenever our forester were planning their management, they were thinking about, okay, how to manage it such that it is not susceptible to pest, it is not susceptible to all these forest diseases, it is not susceptible to all these forest fire and so on. So those were their concern for managing a forest. But now I'm getting traction on, or interest on, those type of integrated management. So we are doing this research specifically targeted to northern Minnesota, 11 counties per se in the first phase, but we already have, or in the process of getting funding for all throughout the Minnesota. And in our board of this research, there are people from school education fund, so who manages a major share of forests in the Minnesota. and also there are people from economic side, people from other sides, such that they are giving us input. And we already did a survey saying that, okay, if we develop this tool, are people willing to use it? So we asked different forester, so do you want to use this type of tool in your decision? Do you really care about other ecosystem services that we are talking about? So we find very positive responses. So this type of analysis that we will be doing, and we will keep it free, at least for the preliminary. We'll keep it free for all the stakeholders to use. So if a forester or private forest owner want to use that tool and find out how he can manage their forest at the same time taking care of ecosystem services. So at some point, say, they can get like sustainable forestry documentation saying that the way I manage my forest is sustainable and so on. So those type of things will be in future, if not in near future. So.
Yeah, great. Another question that's come in with regard to quality standards, are biophysical limits considered when looking at natural resources, and how is this measured?
Yeah, so the way we are doing is this type of, like, if you look into the water quality and those things. So these quality standards are set by state in conjunction with the EPA themselves. So we don't set that constraint, and this is the duty of the state to say if a water body fulfills the associated use or not. And based on their set water quality standard, I will not go into details because we are not the people who set the standard. But they set this standard saying that, okay, this is the watershed we have 5 lakes in that watershed, and what will be the total maximum daily load for different nutrient loading. And based on that, they set up, okay, this is the maximum daily load come into this lake or this watershed altogether. So based on that, compare it with their water quality standard, they can say whether a water body is impaired or not. So this is the job of Minnesota DNR in conjunction with the US EPA. And we got their data saying that a lake is impaired or not, and then we associate property value along the lake shore and see if a lake is impaired, what is happened. So I'm not commenting directly how they set their water quality standard, but my comment is we take their standard and move our analysis after that. Thanks.
Great. Side question that's come up through a message is, could this valuation tool be used to potentially charge companies or corporations for ecosystem damages that they potentially haven't paid for, considered as an externality in the past? So they've used up water and damaged water. Could that be a way to put a value on water and charge a company for something like that?
Yeah, so I will refer to document with your question when you bring this in. So recently I watched a movie, I think it came out last year. It talked about like dark water. So it is talking about all this Teflon pollution of the water going on back in 1970s, I guess, when Teflon came into. And they are talking about all this solicitation and legal action that going on. And along with that, I read a recent paper by Kathy Kling, who is my co-author and also works at the work at the Cornell University. She is professor there. So their paper really talks about it's better to have some number than no number. So the way we feel it, before from Exxon to BP, we did not have that much of analysis going on, and we did not have cases where we can say, okay, how much harmful this is to the environment and what is going on and what is the value of it. But now we are getting this type of valuation, and now we are getting we have some number of assessing what can be the possible value. But again, what we are saying here is that when you are talking about natural resources, first thing you can come to your mind is, yes, it is invaluable. You should not put a number, but you can put a number to your damages. There are some damage assessment technique, and those can give you the value, how much damages all this corporation and other entity put into not only in water for other ecosystem services. You can do that. Yes, thanks.
Great. All right, we got time for one last quick question. Maybe this is a quick question, maybe it's not. So the last one in the Q&A is, you mentioned that people's motivation is geared towards shorter term gain. So how might a long-term goal, long-term gain be sold to the public, so to speak?
Yeah, so that's my, I was sharing just my personal experience, saying that I feel like people are thinking about short term, and we have seen it from consumer behavior to many other behaviors. For example, people purchasing behavior during the COVID. So when it started, there is a short of say toilet paper roll and so on. So it was due to the short-term behavior of the people. So we can do that by giving them financial literacy and some other education, saying that, okay, you need to think about long-term. And for example, I can always give a good example of the road network system of the US. So if those people back in 70s did not think about all this demand for roads today's, then it will not be that developed, and we will not be beneficial for that right now. So there is always, I believe, if you think long term, and you can take, your assumptions are relaxed and you can take better decision. That's what I feel like. And if you want to increase people's literacy to take the long-term decision, you need to educate them and give them tools such that they think in the long run instead of just going in the short run.
Absolutely. I feel like we're coming up against that in a lot of things currently in the world, trying to figure out how to see that long-term vision. Saleh, is there anything else that you want to share, or additional thoughts that you have about questions that have come up, or just where your work is going in the next little bit here as we close?
Yeah, so some of the results I have shown you is preliminary, and it's not like, it is preliminary, and we have not published it yet. So that's one thing. And another thing, like I do not know specific demographics of the attendee today, but I heard that like many of you guys are students. So I am familiar with doing a lot of geospatial analysis and also this valuation exercise. And I'll be more than happy to collaborate with students if you have a cool project or something you need to help with For example, you are struggling with any geospatial analysis or any statistical analysis, feel free to reach me out, and I'll be more than happy to help you guys.
That's wonderful. So any student on the call that might be interested in getting some expert advice, make note of Saleh's email on the screen there. I just want to thank everybody who joined this webinar today. This is the last of our Art of Resilience series for this semester, undetermined whether or not we will continue into the fall, because we just don't know where we're going to be in the fall. Saleh, thank you for your time and sharing your research and expertise with us. It is very interesting and really excited to see more stuff as you start publishing. If folks have additional questions or would like to connect directly with either myself or my co-presenter who was not able to join us today, Ryan Erke, I've got our contact information up on the screen now. And yeah, I just appreciate you all, and go out and have a happy week. And hopefully you're able to celebrate Earth Day tomorrow. But if not, Earth Day should be every day. So you can always celebrate when it's when it's time for you. So thanks so much. Oh, there's Ryan. Ryan, do you want to say anything?
Yep, thank you, Saleh, and thank you everyone for joining us. It's been a great semester and year for Art of Resilience. Thank you, Jana, for holding the fort and seeing us through, and look forward to connecting with all of you in the future.
Great, wonderful. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.